everyone, welcome back to Cottoverdi. My name's Annette and today I've got a couple of things to cover. So the first thing is that I've had my last Dahlia tuber delivery. So I'm going to go through this haul with you, and I've only got one more Dahlia delivery, and those are going to be little seedlings that are going to be sent out later on. And then after I've gone through the Dahlias, I'm going to be sowing some seeds. So I'm going to be sowing some Hardy Perennials and I'm going to be sowing some Hardy Annuals. So let's go through the Dahlias I've had in this delivery. It's quite a long list actually, and I've arranged them for your pleasure from pale through to apricots and peaches, through to pinks and mauves and purples. So you probably won't notice, but they're in an ombre order. It just made me happy. What I'll do is I'll put the name and a picture up on the screen, and I'm also going to put the height and the flower size up on the screen so that all I have to do is just describe the flowers to you, and then you can check the height the plant gets to and the flower size up on the screen next to the name. So the first one is called Salvia, which is a gorgeous off-white colour with a pale yellow lemony centre to it. This is the palest one that I've got in this delivery. In fact, it's probably one of the lightest coloured dahlias that I have. I tend to go for brighter colours in my dahlias, but I thought I'd give this one a try. It's actually a replacement for something else that I had in my order and they couldn't deliver on that, so this is the one that I chose instead. The next one I've got is Wizard of Oz, and actually I do have Wizard of Oz already in my collection, but I felt like those tubers weren't performing particularly well last year. They produced really weak stems, and I just wanted to replace those tubers because I didn't think they were diseased or anything. I just didn't feel like they were particularly good plants. So I've got new fresh tubers. Wizard of Oz is a gorgeous pale pink, perfectly shaped ball dahlia. And I've got Breakout. This is really similar in shape and colour to Cafe au Lait, but it's more pink than Cafe au Lait, less of the cream, and it's got a sort of little peachy glow to the centre, and it's got this kind of more loosely formed flowers than Cafe au Lait, so it's a little bit more informal. Then I've got Wine-Eyed Jill. I only have one tuber of Wine-Eyed Jill and I just want more because it's this gorgeous little ball dahlia with peachy, pinky petals and a very wine-coloured centre to it. And it is so gorgeous and it goes with so many other flowers. I think it's beautiful. I've also got Peaches. This one is new to me. It's described as achingly pretty. The petals fade out from a glowing heart of orange to palest peach. This is not the same as Peaches and Cream. This is a different dahlia. It's not Peaches and Cream, it's just called Peaches. Then I've got a dahlia called Late or Late. It's got full stops in between each letter, so I'm not sure what the Late stands for, but I'm going to call it Late. This is a gorgeous peach and melon ball dahlia with a lemony centre. I've also got some more Linda's Baby because I want to put Linda's Baby in my pots this year. And again, the Linda's Baby that I have in my collection already, I don't know whether it was planted in the wrong place in my border last year, but it didn't perform well and the flowers became very mottled. And so I just wanted to replace that tuber. So I've got Linda's Baby that I'm going to put in pots. And Linda's Baby is this gorgeous, pretty, peachy pink ball-shaped flower. Then I've got Mr. Franz, which is new to me. This is a water lily dahlia in apricot colours with buttery streaks, and apparently it's on really sturdy stems and it's an early bloomer. Then I have one called Urner Panzer. Urner Panzer is a vibrant salmony coloured dahlia. This is a decorative dahlia with a beautiful tutti frutti colour combination. It's apparently got a striking pink centre which will give us an extra pop of colour. Then I have a ball dahlia called Caitlin's Joy, which has lovely neat flowers of mauvey rose warmed by the merest hints of apricot. And I've got one of my all-time favourites called Baleska. Now I don't know, again, I think this is the problem when we have lots of dahlias. that sometimes they just become weak or they don't perform particularly well. I don't know whether that's the tuber that's been supplied or whether that tuber is, I don't know, are they on their way out? I'm not sure what happens, but I only had one Balesca last year and I tried to replace it and I was sent completely the wrong tubers. They were mauve. And I was sent those by another supplier. So I've again tried to get my hands on more Balesca this year. And the reason I want Balesca is because it really is one of my favourites. It's not big and loud and splashy, but when you look closely at Balesca, it just has the most beautiful apricot-y, peachy, mauvey coloration. And I just adore it. It's quite a small dahlia, like in flower size, but for me it does grow quite tall and I love Balesca. Then I managed to get my hands on one night silence from this supplier. I was supposed to get more, but they let me down and I've got one tuber. So I'm going to treasure this tuber because night silence, again, it's just a beautiful dahlia. It's quite unlike other dahlias because it's got this muted, antique-y, mauvey coloration with a different colour to the undersides of the petals, and I really love it. I lost all my night silence in a freeze that we had a couple of years ago, so I've desperately been trying to replace these tubers. Then I have Senior's Hope, which is a little bit similar to Night Silence, but it's not because it's richer coloured than Night Silence. It's not as vintagey feeling, but it still does have these antique-y tones to it. It's probably deeper in colour than Night Silence. Then I've got a new one to me that I'm very excited about. It's called Purple Flame, and the photos that I've seen of this are just bright purple. No wonder it's called Purple Flame. I cannot wait to see this one in real life. I think it's going to bring this amazing magical pop of colour. I hope it's as bright as it looks. And then the last one I have is called Bumble Rumble, which I received a tuber from a different supplier last year. Didn't turn out to be Bumble Rumble at all. It was something completely different, nothing like Bumble Rumble. So I've got Bumble Rumble, which is a collarette dahlia, and it's got this lovely deep pinky purple outside and the central cuff of petals are white. So I'm very excited to have Bumble Rumble. So that is all for my dahlia tuber hauls this year until I get the next delivery of little seedlings or cuttings. They take cuttings and send the cuttings out. And I think actually that's a really nice way to do it. Those cuttings will form tubers. The first year you have them, they'll produce flowers just the same way as any dahlia tuber would. But it's economical to send them out that way because they don't weigh as much. And this particular supplier sends them out in lovely packaging. I'll show you all of that when it arrives. I'm very excited about those, but they won't send them out, I guess, until they've grown them, firstly, and secondly, until the weather warms up a little bit. So now I'm going to sow some seeds. Let me tell you what I'm sowing today. I'm going to start with the Hardy Perennials that I'm sowing, and I'm sowing 4 different kinds of Hardy Perennials. So the first one, probably loads of people know this already, it's bee balm or monarda, and I'm sowing a variety called Bergamo. It's going to grow to 60 centimetres by 60 centimetres, that's just over 2 foot by 2 foot, and it is this intense rosy purple colour, so it's much deeper than like the ordinary monarda or bee balm, that the common one that we find around. This one seems to be darker and I'm really looking forward to that. It's also earlier flowering than other monardas. So the way we sow this one is we can sow it between January and April, and this is now the very end of March. So I'm going to sow the seeds into my 8-cell trays, and I'm sowing them on the surface of the compost. This is ordinary multi-purpose peat-free compost. I don't tend to use seed compost at all. And then I'm going to cover it with a layer of vermiculite. The seed packet does actually say to sow it 2 millimeters below the surface, but I feel like a layer of vermiculite is going to solve the problems here. It likes 20 degrees to germinate, and it's going to take between 10 and 24 days. The reason I'm sowing Bergamo is because it says that it's going to flower first year from seed. So I'm hoping I'm going to have flowers from June right the way through till the first frosts. The next seed I'm sowing is called Eupatorium Ivory Towers. It's also known as pieweed or Queen of the Meadow. It's going to grow to 1.8 meters by 1 meter. So that's over 6 foot tall. It won't get to it won't get to that height this year. But it is this gorgeous, eye-catching architectural plant for the back of a border with wonderful clusters of ivory coloured flowers, and it's attractive to all the pollinators, and I'm very much looking forward to having this plant. I hope that I can get some seeds to germinate. It says to sow it between March and May. Light is needed, so I'll only give it a very light sprinkling of vermiculite. It needs 20 degrees and it might take 4 weeks before it germinates. It might also need cold stratification. If it needs cold stratification, I guess I just won't get any flowers or seedlings this year, and I'll try again and sow some in the autumn. But I thought it's worth giving it a try and sowing it today. Again, I've chosen to sow this one because it says it will flower the first year from seed, even though it might not get as tall as the 1.8 meters that are promised. The next hardy perennial is called Salvia hyans. I think that's how you say it, looks like how you say it. Obviously this is a lovely fragrant sage. It'll grow to 60 centimetres by 60 centimetres. Again, that's about 2 foot by 2 foot. This is a robust, strongly scented sage with bright, showy flowers. They look a little bit like penstemons to me. They're a lovely sort of bluey lavender colour, and this should flower from June right through to August. So I'm going to sow these again into the 8-cell trays. You can sow it between March and April. It needs 20 to 25 degrees to germinate, and it could take between 10 and 14 days, but my seed packet does say that it could be very erratic, but just to keep the compost or the soil moist, and hopefully I will get some germination. The last hardy perennial I'm sowing today has got a complicated name, so I'm going to read out how to pronounce it. It's called Schizocerium scoparium. Schizocerium It's called Schizocerium scoparium. It's also known as a little blue stem prairie grass, and I think that's so much easier to say, so I may default to the little blue stem. This is going to grow to 1.2 meters tall and 60 centimeters wide. What is that? That's at least 4 foot tall, I think. So it's this tall, dramatic bluegrass with upright seed heads, and it turns coppery orangey in the autumn. And I think this will be a lovely addition to my grass border. I may pop it in other places if I get good germination. So again, I'm going to sow this into my 6-cell seed trays. You can sow it indoors between March and June, and it says to sow it 1 millimeter deep. So I'm just going to cover it with a light sprinkling of vermiculite, and it needs 20 degrees to germinate, and it should take 4 weeks. And this grass may flower in its first year. It may not, we'll see. Now we get on to the hardy annuals. Now, all of these hardy annuals, I'm sowing 4, all the packets say to direct seed outside, but if you know me well, you'll know that I don't take well to direct seeding outside. I worry about the cats just scratching up at the surface. I worry about the birds getting them. I worry about not being able to identify the seedlings from weeds. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of each packet and sow them into these 7 centimeter cells. Hopefully that way they will have the least amount of root disturbance possible. And I will also be sowing later on, closer to my last predicted frost, which is the middle of April. I will sow some of these seeds outside. So for now, I'm going to sow half the packets into these little pots. So let me tell you what I'm sowing today. I'm going to be sowing Viscaria, a formula mix. This is also called a German catchfly or a rose angel, it says on my seed packet, but I've seen that in less places. And this is going to grow to 40 centimeters tall by 60 centimeters wide. This is a perfect cottage garden plant it's covered in a profusion of showy, bluey, pinky shades of flowers. It really is just one of the perfect cottage garden plants. I really want some of these in some pots. I would love some of these in some borders. I think they'd be the perfect sort of plant to have at the front of a border that would cover a multitude of sins behind. Apparently these are super easy to grow. You can just chuck the seeds in the garden and 6 to 8 weeks later you'll have flowers. I think that's really fast. Anyway, I'm going to grow some in some pots. Let's see how quickly I have some flowers. So I'm going to sow these on the surface of the compost. It says that germination is good at 20 degrees. So I'm going to probably keep mine in the seed room rather than in the cold frame, and let's see what happens. Hopefully I'll have germination in about 3 weeks. Then I'm sowing Xeranthemum annuum. This is a very popular flower. It's called an annual everlasting or an immortelle. And these are gorgeous, very like straw flowers actually, but slightly shorter. They're just not going to get to the same height. They're going to get to 50 centimeters by 45, so that's just under 2 foot tall. So these are a lovely everlasting flower that come in shades of white and pink and violet. They're loved by pollinators. They look great in the garden, in arrangements, but they're also fantastic for drying. And again, these are preferably sowed direct outside, but I'm going to sow mine into my 7 centimeter pots. It says to sow them outside between April and June, or if you're doing them indoors, to sow them between 5 and 8 weeks before your last frost date. I'm obviously a bit late for that, but I'm going to sow them onto these pots. I'm not going to cover them. They need about 16 degrees to germinate, and it should take between 1 and 2 weeks. So I won't be putting these on a heat mat. I'm very excited about the next flower I'm sowing. It's called Nemophila. I've never heard of this before. They are these gorgeous blue flowers that look a little bit like forget-me-nots. They've got white centers. And I have seen photos of fields in Japan covered in these flowers. I think they're also native to California, but I'm not sure. Definitely in Japan, I've seen absolutely fields of these beautiful blue flowers. Again, I'm going to be growing these for pots. They're only going to grow to about 20 centimeters tall, but they will spread to about 30 centimeters wide. So that's about a foot wide. Apparently, these plants can die from excessive heat. So they're not going to love full sun if you live in a very hot climate. It'd be better to put them in some dappled shade, or even shade, I suppose. I'm going to put mine in pots in the hope that I can move the pots if we have a really hot summer. So I'm going to sow these onto the surface of the pots. They are going to need 12 degrees to germinate, and they should take between 7 and 21 days. Again, I'm going to cover them with a light sprinkling of vermiculite because I like to do that. The last seed I'm sowing today is another hardy annual. This one is called Asperula orientalis. It's a blue woodruff, which is a herb. It is shade loving, very shade tolerant anyway, and it's got these gorgeous lavender blue flowers, and they're kind of tubular shaped, so they just look a little bit different. They're loved by pollinators and they are wonderfully scented. So I am going to have these outside my front door, which, as you may know, is a shaded area where I've got lots of pots, and I think they're going to be perfect. And then as we come in and go out, we're going to get wafts of wonderful scent. Again, this is another plant that is not going to perform well in an extremely hot summer. I hope we don't get too much heat, but hopefully being in a shady area, they'll cope a lot better. So I'm going to sow these into my 7 centimeter pots again, but if you wanted to sow them outside, you can do that between April and June, and they only need 10 degrees centigrade to germinate. So I won't be putting these on my heat mat, and it does say they're going to take between 30 and 40 days to germinate. I am also only going to cover them with a tiny sprinkling of vermiculite because my notes say that they need light to germinate. So now that I've sown all my seeds, I am going to bottom water everything. I do that so that I don't dislodge any of the seeds. So I just put everything into a tray of water and let the compost absorb the water until it's moist. And I can tell when it's moist because the vermiculite on top changes from this really pale colour to a darker mid-brown colour, and then I know that the water has reached the surface. At that point I drain everything and I carry them through to my seed starting room. So even for the things that I've sown today that aren't going on heat mats, I'm still going to take them through to the seed room and cover the trays with a domed lid so that it helps to keep retain the moisture and a humid environment which the seeds need to germinate. And then I will keep you updated on how my seeds are doing, and I'll let you know when I plant them out whether they survive. But I will also in a future video be sowing some of these seeds direct outside, and we can do a comparison between the ones sown in pots and the ones that are direct sown. I am assuming the ones that are direct sown in a month's time are going to do a lot better, but you know, we'll see. Maybe I'll be successful. I really hope I am successful with some of these. I really do want some of these plants this year. Anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed this video today. If you have, then please do hit the like button. It really does help me. And subscribe to my channel if you want to see more, if you want to see how these plants are doing in the future. If you'd like some more inspiration for your garden this year, then come and follow along, because I've got loads of things that I'm doing in the garden this year. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time.